Great. I live in Durant, Pennsylvania, and I'm a mom of 3 boys. They're 21, 18, and 15, and I found Relive about 10 years ago. I'm a registered dietitian by trade. I've worked in the drug industry and pharmaceuticals and in private practice as a dietitian, and took some time off to have my children. But when Relive came along, I wasn't receptive in the beginning. We don't regulate supplements in the U.S., so I saw no reason to look at this company. But a little time went by, and I went into full-blown menopause in my early 40s, so I was experiencing hot flashes, severely depression, anxiety attacks, and a lot of migraines. So that's what started me on the product. I've gotten results with all those things. It took time. But in the process, my stamina has just become amazing. My sleep has never been this good. Hypoglycemia symptoms are also gone. I used to have a spasm pain cycle in my back. That stopped happening. And just so many things changed with my health that I never, I don't know, I never really even thought anything was wrong with me. But now that I look back, I had a lot of issues that affected my quality of life. And my knees were shot from many years of long-distance running. But through basic nutrition and a functional formula, I got back to running again and just did a half marathon this past weekend and felt amazing. And I'm now 55. So I now look at Relive for prevention. My kids all take the products. They all have allergies, and they've all gotten results with their allergies as well as just staying well. My youngest one was diagnosed with autism, high-functioning autism, when he entered kindergarten. We really just thought he was a bit quirky, but didn't know that he had anything like that. But the school environment just brought out the issues that he was having, and we struggled with him for many years with his autism issues, but also he had a very weak immune system. So he was actually hospitalized 3 years in a row with pneumonia in October, and I realized that his allergies were really the problem and causing that. And when I got him faithfully consistent on his product, he stopped having issues with that, and he's now 15. With regard to autism and Relive, it's hard to say what causes what sometimes, because when you have an autistic child with a lot of sensory issues, proprioception, dyslexia, lots of things that we've been treating him for, it's hard to say what is responsible for creating change. But I can tell you that once he got consistent on his shakes, he stopped coming into the kitchen every night between 4 and 5 o'clock and laying on the floor and screaming. So, that was just an indication that nutrition was helping him manage himself better. And then some years went by, and he was being treated by an occupational therapist for proprioception and some other things. And she tested him, and I asked her how long it would take before we would see a difference with her treatment. And she said it would take about 6 to 8 months. And this lady has her PhD. She's been practicing for about 40 years, so a lot of experience. She gave me some literature to explain, so very scientifically based practice. But the surprise was that in 4 months, she looked at me after his session one day, and she said, he's changed so much. I'd like to retest him. She retested him, and the result was that he had not only met the goal that she had for him, he had exceeded it. And she said, in my 40 years, I've never seen anybody do that. So, it's just an indication to me that having the really good nutrition on board is going to allow him to improve as best as he can. And so today he's back in public school. He's going into the 9th grade next year. He still has some issues, including dyslexia and reading, but he's doing quite well. So we're really thankful that his body gets what it needs to be as good as it can be. I'll share another story with you. Just because of the nature of our call today, I ended up working with a young man who was in his early 20s who had an accident where he was walking on a road and a drunk driver hit him, and his body went into the air, and he landed with his head and neck into the window, which almost decapitated him, but his spinal cord was intact. So even though he was pronounced dead a couple times on the way to the hospital, he was alive when he got there, and the doctors pretty much said, he's not going to make it. But the family was insistent that they try everything. So long story with all that, but the family met one of my my distributors not too long after that. They used a little bit of our product, but not really very seriously, like a shake every here and there, no changes. And this boy spent the next couple of years, about 365 days out of 2 years in the hospital, and always in critical condition, always blood work abnormal, gut problems, bowel issues, all of that. But he stopped tolerating the tube feeding, which led them to search for something else. They decided they wanted him to be tube-fed, only relive with a fat source added, so I helped them do that. And within months, his blood work became normal. He stopped going into the hospital, stopped having pneumonia, which was one of his issues. His bowels became normal functioning. His skin, for a boy that laid on his back year after year, his skin was like a baby skin. And typically, you would have somebody with a lot of tissue breakdown. The other thing that changed was his diaphragm and his breathing. He was able to actually start breathing on his own. He started communicating, so mentally we saw some changes. He was really on his way to walking, and he was a quad. So they turned him a semi-quad at this point because he's using his arms, hands, and able to walk with assistance. So, and then seizures became an issue for him because of the medication. And it was December of last year that he did die. But, he was really healthy in many respects with the exception of this medication that caused him to have seizures, which caused him to need a lot more medications and just began to have issues because of that, and that's really what ended up ending his life. But I think the takeaway from that is that this boy was critically ill and injured, and he functioned quite well for somebody in his condition, beyond the expectation of any medical professional. When he would go into the hospital on occasion, the room would be full of people because they wanted to see this boy that was doing this well. It was kind of like a miracle. So it was just an eye-opener to work with him. He actually was tube-fed, relived for, I'm guessing, I think it was 4 years, kind of lose track of time, but about that length of time. He received only the relive products with a fat source added, and occasionally they would feed him, and he started swallowing, too, which was my surprise. I never thought he would swallow again, but he was able to eat some pleasure foods as well. Yeah. So